Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. We are just waiting for Mr. Karthik to join for the cybersecurity session. Okay, we'll be joining in another 2 minutes. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, please let us know. Questions can be of anything and of any from any region. It could be it could be from cybersecurity, it could be from AI, data science, or any of the streams that we provide the free internship, or maybe regarding the jobs. Which date internship will start? Actually, it has already started. This is I believe this is the 8th session for cybersecurity, and the next following DevOps will be also the eighth session. Okay, so it is already towards the end of cybersecurity, maybe one
I
or
think they are
two
asking
maximum
when is
sessions.
the next batch setting starting for the cybersecurity and DevOps. Actually, one of the students that called me today to check,
Okay, okay.
can we enroll, when we'll get the certification for that. So I asked him how many sessions he has attended. He told he has enrolled now, like only one batch is there. So I told him that you have to attend about 80% of the sessions to get the certificate. So there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people are asking when will be the next session for the batch for the right? Yeah, that's what. So
So
uh,
no need to worry. I think it is all. It is like there will be a bit of gap between your last session, that will either will be this or maybe the one next coming up. Okay, so after that there will definitely be some 1 or 2 weeks gap. So just keep an eye on that on the group. We will keep you informed as it comes. So just keep an eye, Wambari. Okay, just keep an eye on the group. You will definitely come to know. But can continue. It is also one thing. The advantage is if you follow our YouTube channel, you will get all the recordings, previous recordings, like all the 8 sessions that already happened with cybersecurity. Or else you can do that, as well as you can join back in our next cycle of cybersecurity. That is also there. So this will keep on changing, but there have to be, you have to give some rest to Mr. Karthik as well. So he is having the full the morning and the evening batches of the paid training plus this internship. So almost like 6 days in a week he is engaged. Okay, so he must be taking some breather of 2 weeks maximum, and then he will again come back for the internship cycle, next cycle. Is that fine? Did I answer your question? And for the certificates, you need to attend at least some 80% of the live sessions, which is already recorded, and therefore it will be counted. So you can only start, because if you have joined it towards the late end, it will not be possible. So you have to join fresh for the next cycle, and then you will be able to achieve 80%. So if there are 8 sessions, you must attend at least 6. After that, you have to complete the contents that is given. You have to keep on getting that tick marks. Okay, and I think that you have to attend one just a question and answer session, and after that automatically after all these things you have completed, automatically the certificate will be there available in the profile. In your profile, you can download that. We are still having such a less number of, because in our other group, in the internship group, we already have 1K, which is 1025 number of students. So it is not allowing us to admit any other students in that group. So we have created another group which is already touching 100. New group. Everyone is joining, but nobody is attending. Very few people are attending the live sessions. That is one sad part. I don't know why.
Now, here I would like to add one point, Mr. Devashish. Most of
Yes.
the people, many of the people, especially people from India, they have a knack to get the certifications, not the knowledge or the skills.
Yeah, for that,
And
this is not the purpose. Yeah, for
yes,
us, we do not fulfill that purpose.
if you guys only join for the certificates, I think you are in the wrong place.
Yes, correct.
Because frankly, any certificate, even from Kalkey, even just name any training organizations, even it is an online, physical or self-space, those certification have zero value, maybe sometime less than zero. Until unless you get certificates from vendor, those certificates are having a lots of impact on your resume. You can take 10, 20, 30 Udemy, Unacademy, and so many certificates on your resume. Kalki says certificates, any even physical certificates. Okay, those certificates, and right now you will find that there are many certificates in collaborating with US universities. Uh, and those universities are Ivy League universities. Universities have zero value until unless you are doing some certificates from vendor like AWS, Azure, CompTIA, then EC Council for cybersecurity. The secondly for DevOps, Kubernetes certificates, Azure DevOps certificate. Those certificates have the value, and you will get the value because these certificates comes with proper a test, and they normally hire some proctors, so you cannot skip the. So they actually do the quality control. But I done the training. I never join any course, and there is an online self-paced video are there, and start and you got the certificates. Frankly, zero value. So don't chase for certificates. Get the skill, then go for those exams. You'll get your certificate, and you will uh, get your like the dream job. I don't know, and I can understand why Indian people are more concerned about certificate. The way Indian job advertisement and many other like these topmost training organizations, they advertised that hey, this certificate, that certificate. Frankly, really, certificates is you have a UGC approved university certificate, and they are certified. They have certified you as you are a BTech engineers or MTech engineers. Those certificates have no value, and you got a certain value with like 4 weeks or 6 months training value. You do have not really. I can actually give another written in US, zero value. And many people, they feel that this thought, it may pinch them, but that is the truth.
I think the main reason they go is that in the colleges, they have to show that they have completed internship somewhere. And that is why they are doing it, is one of the main reasons I feel. But one of the main reasons why I think people should attend our seminars, the internship program, and it may be any other, corporate level, product level based seminars, is that when I was studying penetration testing and ethical hacking in my college, there was absolutely zero information out there. So even if someone posted hacking videos, they were arrested at that time. So just to take a CH exam, certified ethical hacker, I had to give police verification certificate at that time, whatever you do for get for passport, right? So, but nowadays it is the opposite. There is too much information that is available out there, and you don't know what to do, what information is relevant for you, and what information is not relevant for you, right? In YouTube also, people would, this is very important for you to get and things and all. It is so long. A lot of times, even a good quality candidates have rejected. Candidates who have cleared very difficult certification like OSCP have rejected from the job because they may be good at pen testing, but they don't have a relevant because they focus on infrastructure more. But in my job, I require more web application related vulnerability checking, pen testing access level out there. So that is the difference. One of the main thing is if it is like someone showing the direction to go in a right way, it helps reduce your the pain, whatever, because education or knowledge is always a penance, right? It takes more time for that. So you can reduce it, make it much more, better utilization of your time and success at an earlier time compared to other things. Otherwise, it happened for me. It happened for me even after me doing masters till I did start, and about 3 to 4 years after that only I realized, okay, I was studying something wrong for 3 to 4 years, right? So it is how it is different. So the one of the main things, if you see in both, in all some maybe internship programs we are running, it is relevant to the job portal, what is required, what knowledge is required, what is not required. It is what we look about that, right? We don't give any unnecessary topics and very much into that part itself. You should look into that perspective, right? Knowledge, it is there available, but what to do and what not to do is very important, because it's flooded. If you open internet, if you can go 10 pages in Google search, and every page will tell this is what is entirely new topic to search and do it. So you will not know, you will be overwhelmed with too much information, and you will not know what to do, what to study and what not to study. Right. So that is where because all of us, we are working here, come from industry background. We know what is happening in the ground today, what is being used, and the content is designed just for that. Right. And we are constantly getting our main paid students. We are interacting with them. We are supporting them in their job hunt, and we know what is being industry is asking. So we are constantly updating the content as well along with that part. So that's one thing. Just for certification, it makes, as Menon is saying, does not make sense. You have to look from a career perspective as well.
So, Mr. Menon, Pranjal is asking some question which is very difficult for me to address that. If you can look at it. These sort of questions often come up, but really I find it, I don't know what to answer, how to address them.
Sir, I am not joined group. I am to attend the live session. Please give official link to group. Okay. Yeah, we are sending the group link here. So Pranjal, if you're not in the group, how did you got this meeting link?
Yeah, that's the question. Pranjal, can you speak? Because just writing down something, you can always unmute yourself and let us know what the problem is.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I want to ask that live session link is sent in this group, or any official group is there? I am in which group I am
which group
joined.
you are coming? Which group? There are two official groups.
I
There are
am
in fact
joined only one.
That's good enough. One is good enough.
one is good enough. Yes.
Okay,
You
sir.
will find that
Thank you.
in the group description, you will get the link to join, the short URL. And also, I make it sure that before the session starts, we always try to provide with you with the link, the time zones, the time and everything, so that if you follow the group, you shouldn't be having any problem to join it. There is nothing to hide from you. It is only that we wanted to make it as much as open as it is possible.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Okay, I think we can start for today. Yeah, please unmute yourself and ask if you have any doubts or question.
Yes, Ayo, do you have any question? You have raised your hand.
Yeah, then can we start?
Yeah, please.
So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So, welcome back to Cybersecurity Internship. Today, we'll be talking about a very interesting topic. We'll be talking about SSH and what are the different ways we can secure an SSH communication, why SSH is important, right? And how can we connect to SSH without using password? And we are going to work on those components of that. There are few things we have to understand before we could go with SSH out there. First, let's understand what a basically SSH is going to be. Is the sessions recorded start? So let's say you're one of those engineers, right, who are managing servers. It may be in AWS or it may be an on-prem, but you're not directly going to sit in front of server all the time, right, and connect a keyboard to that. And you're not going to enter commands of them. This rarely occurs. It does occur, right? For this kind of situation, very few engineers are going to be there, right? Only one or two, because the rack servers are not accessible to everyone. And especially when you're doing in a cloud, this does not occur at all, right? So let's say you're a developer or an administrator sitting at home in your laptop, and you want to connect to the server, which is in a other part of the world, right? How are you going to do that component? And a lot of you may be knowing about something like AnyDesk, right? Or I think TeamViewer is there and other things are there. They play a very important role in doing that. So therefore, desktop sharing process out there. So this is where we can get a graphical user interface for that, where you're going to have access to the remote system. But this is not the situation in 99% of the cases when it comes to services, right? Predominantly, the servers that are going to be used are going to be on Linux. And Linux, usually when you go on server end, Linux server, there will be absolutely no graphical user interface at all. The example what I'm going to work today will have a graphical user interface, but in real world, that is never going to happen out there, right? Everything is going to be from a command prompt perspective. And it's usually what we call command prompt here is called a shell, right? So what I want to do is that I want to send a command from my system to the server, and execute that command on the remote machine. Right. So in service or software that is going to allow us to do this is called as a remote shell. Right. In remote shell software, there are multiple ones. And one of the most commonly used in previously was Telnet. And the one that is replacing Telnet is SSH. Okay. That is what it allows you to connect to any remote machine in the world. If that SSH service is running on the server, and then it will allow me to run commands on that particular machine out there. If you're someone going for an interview for a website, penetration testing or some of the cases in cybersecurity, to check your fluency in security, understanding concepts out there, they might ask you, what is the difference between a telnet and an SSH? Right? What is the difference between a telnet and an SSH? Anyone has any idea about that? So to be frank, there is no difference except one. Right? Except one. What is that? That is encryption. The communication, whatever the message or command that is sent over telnet, is going to be available. Anyone who is capturing the traffic will be able to know what is this, what information was sent, because it is sent in plain text. Anything that is sent over SSH is going to be encrypted, right? And it cannot be viewed what is happening out there. The difference between telnet and SSH is same as the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. The traffic that is sent over HTTP is visible. Traffic sent over HTTPS is not visible for anyone capturing the network out there. Okay, so that is the main concept out here. So what do you mean by encryption? What do you mean by encryption? What do you mean by encryption? So encryption is a way, right, where we can take a particular any readable text and jumble it in such a way that is not can be understood out there, right? I'm going to use a very good encryption algorithm called as AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, and I'll show you what exactly I mean from that component, right? So I'm just going to give here. Okay, so there is going to have some kind of a password out here. Okay. The length is of importance out here, right? You could see here the message I gave up here is hello world, welcome to cybersecurity internship. And the output is this is what an encrypted output is going to be. Think about here, look here. Does this text make any sense? No, right? It is completely gibberish. And the beauty of encryption is that I cannot take this text and do some kind of a calculation and get the output back to this component of it, right? Unless until I don't know the password that has been given out here, I will not be able to get the original message out. Similarly, what it is going to do is that in encryption, the communication, whatever that has been sent, is going to be sent in this particular matter. And when it reaches the destination machine, what it is going to do is that it is going to take the encrypted text. It is going to take the password of that. In our case, it is 123. And decrypt it. See, we got the original message out here. We put this. There is a process how certain thing is going to happen out there. But there is an advantage for encryption as well. Not only the process of encryption here is called as a confidentiality. Meaning only authorized people can view out the information. Only meaning only the people with the password will be able to look at the information and able to do that part. But confident encryption also have this option to allow authentication as. And this is very important to understand. Very important concept for passwordless authentication in SSH out there. We're going to work on it, but before that we'll understand what exactly it is. Okay. In encryption, there are two types of encryption. One is symmetric encryption and other is asymmetric encryption. In symmetric encryption, there is going to be one password only and one key, right? That is the password for that, both for encryption and both for decryption, like what we did right now. But there is one more thing called as asymmetric encryption. There we'll have two keys out there, right? One key we will use for encryption. The second key is going to be used for decryption. And vice versa. If I use a second key for encryption, I have to use the first key for decryption out there. And this is how it is going to go, right? A main example for symmetric key encryption is AES, and main example for asymmetric encryption is RSA algorithm out. Why, you might be thinking why there was a need for an asymmetric encryption. This is totally irrelevant, right? Symmetric is more than sufficient for you to work on it. But there is a problem out there with symmetric encryption. Symmetric encryption has been there for a long time. The complexity has definitely increased, but I think the symmetric encryption, even in the Roman time, they were using Roman Empire time, that particular time as well, they were using the symmetric key encryption for doing the activities. Right? That's how important that is. But the problem there was when I take a plain text message, right, convert it to an encrypted text, right, and I'll send it to the receiver. But this person, for him to convert to the plain text, what is required? He will need the password for the encryption out there. The question how it arises is, how do I take the password from the sender and give it to the receiver in a safe way? This is one of the major challenges that is going to have our account, right? And especially think about, you may think you can meet up someone and go exchange the password well in advance. And that was done for a long time. But let's say if you're sending a message to someone in US and the sender is in India, for him to send for every time, how do they reach out, right? It is going to be very difficult, right? So what happened was NIST came up with a requirement that we need to some way that this can be achieved. And that is what is happening in the asymmetric key encryption. In asymmetric key encryption, what is going to happen is the user, right? The user is going to create two keys, key 1 and key 2. And we'll mark one key as private key and one key as public key, right? So the public key that has been there, he will post it to everyone. He will tell to everyone, this is my public key, right? It may be pushed into the website or anything, that everything is going to be there. Any website today you're connecting will have a public key for sure. So even for your Google or anything you're going to use, there's going to be public key. And if you want to view where is your public key, for instance, let's say I'm connecting to Google. Right. Whenever you're getting an HTTP padlock symbol, it means communication is encrypted. So the data has to be encrypted from your browser to the Google server. No one middle is able to view the data. But for me to send my information here, Google will have a public key. Where is that public key? Click on that padlock symbol. Click on Connect Secure, more information, right? And here you can see View Certificate. If you see this page is going to come up. And if you come down, a little bit down, this is the certificate. And this is your public key for your communication. Right? Anyone viewing this information will be able to encrypt the communication and send it to Google out there. Right? So that is the main component out here. So now let's say Alice is here. Alice is telling anyone wants to send any information for me in a secure way. Take this, public key is mine. So usually that her public key is available on the website that is there. So now Bob is there on the other end. Bob, what is going to do? He is going to take this public key, take a message, use that public key to create an encrypted message out. Okay, and then he will send that encrypted message to Alice. Now for decrypting this message and get a message, right? Encrypted message to decrypt it, I will not be using the public key. I'll be using the private key. When I use the private key, I'll be able to get the original message out there. And this is a very important concept out there. I don't have to exchange keys before in hand, and I'm going to use the public key. I cannot, the beauty of this algorithm is that anything encrypted using the public key cannot be decrypted using public key at all. If I want to decrypt it, I have to use the private key only. Anything encrypted with public key cannot be decrypted with public key, has to use private key only. Since no one knows what is the private key of that user apart from the user, we can easily tell that this is not going to be, breakable. Right? That is the main concept of it. Again, here, this particular concept is talking about confidentiality out here. Okay, what it is talking about? It is talking about confidentiality out here. It is not doing authentication process. How do we get an authentication process in this using the same concept out here? Okay, so now the simple logic is very simple here. Let's say that Alice user is creating two keys, K1 and K2. Okay, the RSA algorithm, let's say she's using RSA algorithm, and RSA algorithm will create two keys or two passwords, you can tell. Which one is going to be public key here and which one is going to be private key according to you? Right? It is going to be irrelevant. Okay, there is no algorithm. Whenever you run this encryption algorithm, it is going to spit out two keys, K1 and K2. The one key that you are going to share with everyone, that is called as a public key. And one key that you are not sharing is your private key. The logic is very simple here. If you take any message, encrypt with K1, right? It can only be decrypted using K2. Okay. Same thing if you take any message, encrypt with K2, it is going to be decrypted only using K1 out here. Right. Now, how can I use this? How can I use this logic to prove someone's identity? Okay, it's very simple. In this case, we have seen here. That there are two keys out here. And who is having K1 and K2? And K1 is made public key. Right? And K2 is made private key. Who is having access to K2? Only Alice is having access to K2 of them. So now how do I know I'm talking to Alice itself? So let's say Alice is here. And Alice's public key has been specified in our website. And Bob wants to communicate. But before communication, Bob wants to know that he is talking to Alice itself. How can I use this K1 and K2 process to do this process up here? Get the Alice up. So now what Bob is going to do is that he is going to create a message, a sample message. Let's say I'm going to create a message called challenge, and I'll send it to Alice out here, telling Alice, if you're the one who is connecting to prove your identity, this is the challenge for you. What Alice is going to do is that she's going to take the challenge, that message, and she's going to encrypt that message using a K2. The key2 that she is there, that is private key. She is not sharing a private key with anyone, but she's taking that message and encrypting with K2 out there. And she'll send back that encrypted message back to the Bob out there. Now, you remember, anything that is encrypted with K2 is going to be decrypted with K1. Anything encrypted with K1 is going to be decrypted with K2, right? Similarly, since the private key is used for encrypting the message, this key can be decrypted using the public key, that is KP, K public key that can be used out there. Now, once I decrypt it, I'll check the message. Both of them are matching, and here it is going to match 100% because Alice is the process out there. Since only Alice can encrypt a message using private key, which can only be decrypted by public key, I know this message was encrypted by Alice only, hence proving her identity out there. And this we will understand in a much more deeper sense when we do the SSH concept out there. Okay, so initially, let's see how do we set up an SSH. Yes. Just a second. So how do we install SSH in any Linux system out there? You have to understand SSH by default is installed in most Linux OS. Okay, but in our example, we are using Ubuntu desktop, right? In server, it is going to be installed by default. Server, you will not have graphical user interface. You will only have command prompt only. But we are using Ubuntu desktop, and that will not have a default. By default, installation will not be there. Right. So what is the process? First of all, for this to happen, you will need a sudo user to install packages. Sudo user in Linux is nothing but an administrator. And once you have that, you have to run the command sudo apt update. And after that, you have to run the command sudo apt install SSH. And it is as simple as that. You'll be able to install it. Okay. Let's see how do we install services. So before installing, we will see if the service is available or not. You will see here I'm using two virtual machines. One is a Jenkins, this is an Ubuntu virtual machine, which I'm using out here. And one more machine I'm going to use is Kali Linux. What I'm going to use is Jenkins as the server, and Kali Linux is going to act as the client machine out here, right? There are two components out here. One is SSH server and SSH client. We will talk about it. First, we'll see how to install SSH service in our Ubuntu machine, right? Before we could see, let's try to see if SSH is available or not. Sudo system control status SSH, and you will see service could not be found. This happens because I have not yet installed the SSH service out there. So what should be done to install? Giving sudo apt update. This is my first command, right? And this is going to update the repository in the background when it will know now where to download the SSH software from. So now I'm going to give into sudo apt install. I'm going to give SSH. Along with SSH, I'm going to install few other things which is required by me. One is Vim. This is a text editor from a command prompt, which I will need to work on the configuration files of SSH out there. And I need one more tool called NetTools. This is for running certain networking commands that is required for that. Okay, so that is what we'll see, and we'll also see if possible an Apache 2 server. It's a web server. We will not be using it, but for some reason I'm installing it. May be useful in some case, right? The one important tool here, software packages, SSH is very, very important for us. Okay, so let's install it. You could see those. It is downloading, and it will, after downloading, it will install the SSH service out there. When we talk about SSH, there are two components in SSH. One is SSH client and one is SSH server. Okay, SSH client can be your terminal. You might have used something like putty. You might have seen something like git bash as well, right? Which I can use to run SSH command out there. And SSH server is where it is running SSH service out there. So my question is, where is the client going to be running and where is the server going to be running out there? For instance, this is my laptop and this is my remote machine where I want to connect. I want to connect to remote server. If I want to access this, let's say this is the target. Target machine will always have the SSH server out there. Without having SSH server installed, I will not be able to connect to the remote machine at all, right? But in my desktop or my laptop from where I may be using a command prompt or a terminal that is going to act as a client, right? Just like your browser you're using, right? In your internet, whenever you want to browse the internet, what you're going to use? You're going to use Chrome or Mozilla. That is nothing but an HTTP client. Web services, anything that can be accessed using the browser. So that is the client program. The server is always going to be there in some other location. Similarly, like a browser, a command prompt or a terminal is going to help you with that process for that part. So client is going to be installed in all the devices, almost all, right? Previously, until Windows 10 early stages, putty was the only way to connect to SSH via Windows. But nowadays, Windows is given by default programs are there that can be used to connect to the server out here. Okay, so that is what is going to happen out here. Just a second. Just a second. So now let's check whether the service is installed or not. Right? I will give sudo system control status SSH. And previously, if you remember, we got the service is not known, but now we are not getting like that. We are getting is service is inactive. It is need to be, it is in dead state, meaning it is installed now, but it is not running. So how do we start that service? Use the same command, right? You can give start system control start. If you give status now you see previously it was shown as inactive and dead. Now after running the system control start SSH, the service is running out. So now how do we connect to this? I want to connect from Kali Linux to Kali Linux to Ubuntu machine. So how do we connect for that? So what I'm going to do is that it is very simple. I'm going to open a command prompt in my Kali Linux. Right. Let me increase the font size. So I'm going to use the command SSH. I'm going to use the student name, username. In this case, the username is student, and I will need the IP address of the Ubuntu machine, right? So how do I get? If you remember, I use the tool called net tools, right? When I install that, I'll be able to use this particular command, ifconfig, press enter. The IP address is 192.168.178.160. Okay, so give that IP address here, 192.168.178.160, and press enter. Right, and this is going to be given for the first time. It is telling, are you sure you want to connect? I'm telling yes, and it is asking me for the student password. I know the student password. In this case, it is just PASS, and I press enter. You will see now I've logged into the Ubuntu machine out here. See here, so student DSO Jenkins. You can see a sudo DSO Jenkins out there. In fact, if I open the home directory out here, see, there are certain bare minimum files out there. Let me create one folder called one. Folder name is going to be one from the Kali machine, and it should be created there. So I can give mkdir one. Right, I press enter. What does SSH do? It is going to allow remote users to connect and execute commands out there. So I've connected before. Now I'm going to execute this command called mkdir, and we're going to see that command. See, as you can see, previously there was no one folder. Now that folder is already created out there. I can even delete also. I can do a lot of things. I can do rmdir1. I can, now it's deleted. Now if you go back, that particular file is no longer existing out there. It can be used to do a lot of activities. Any command I can type in here in the terminal can be typed in the terminal via client via a different location. There is no limitation to that. I will be able to access completely, right? As a hacker, for me, one of the most important services that I want to hack and I want to compromise is going to be SSH. Right? This is a particular service is of very much importance for me, and I want to compromise this as much as possible for my end. This is very, very crucial for us. Okay, so that is how important this is going to be. Now you could see, since student user is the sudo user or admin user, I can run admin commands as well from a remote location. For instance, I can do system control sudo. If you see, there's one particular file called shadow file. If I don't use sudo, I cannot read that file. Right? So it is telling permission is denied. I'm going to run the same thing with the sudo. Sudo, it is telling admin permission is being given out there. Just enter the password for that, and you could see the content of that file. This shadow file is the file that contains the password of all the users in the Linux operating system. Right? So this is in the case, this is the password for student user. It is in an encrypted format and a hash format. You will not be able to read it in a human readable format. It has to be converted. Okay, that is how it goes. But this file is important. So you can see here, even from a remote location, I can run administrative commands using SSH, right? As it tells, remote code execution is allows for that. In this case, I'm able to execute that part, right? Here, the Kali Linux is working as client, and Ubuntu machine out here is going to work as the server out there. Server is always giving access to its system to a remote machine in a SSH concept out there. Okay, so that is how it is going to work. Let me have some water. So there are certain components that you need to do. Okay. Previously, I told in most of the Linux, SSH is going to be installed by default. Let me close this SSH session. How do I close an SSH session? It's very simple. Click enter, exit, and press enter. It will automatically close that SSH session out here. And you could see here the logout connection to that particular service is closed, right? Let's see. Is SSH installed in Kali Linux by default? Here you could see SSH is installed in Kali Linux. I don't have to install specifically. I just have to make sure to start the service out there. And in this case, it is started. Okay. So now I can do the other way around also. Right, I can give ifconfig. You can see 192.168.178.161 is the IP address for this Kali Linux machine. Here, if you are seeing, watch closely, there is the user I'm logged in as is called as the root user. Root user is the supreme user in Linux. I don't have to use sudo. I don't have to enter password to do any of it. If you remember in Ubuntu machine, for looking at the shadow file, I had to give sudo, enter the file, and for sudo I had to enter password. But if you're logged in as root user, you don't need any of it. You can directly go and tell cat/etc shadow file. It will print everything out there. There is not a single file in the Linux operating system that cannot be changed or accessed by a root user. Root user can access everything out there. Complete compromise can be happened. And this is one particular user which is very important for us, right? We want to compromise as a hacker. I want to compromise this particular user all the time. Okay. So now let me try to access as that particular root user from my Ubuntu machine in the Kali Linux. What is the command? It's very used SSH. The syntax is root at IP, right? SSH root user at IP. Here the username is root and the IP address is 192.168.178.161. 161 is IP address for Kali Linux. Press enter. It is telling for the first time this is always going to be there. Click S and enter. I enter the password for root. Even the SSH connection service is running, I will not be able to access as root user in the Kali Linux. Even though root user is a legitimate user in Kali Linux, I will not be able to access it. Why? As a safety precaution, you have to make sure this is true in your system as well. When you're working in your work environment, you're working on SSH, make sure root user, no one will be able to access the server as root user via SSH. It should not be allowed at all. Okay, that is very, very important. So how do you know whether this has been allowed or not? You can either try to log in as that, but you have to look at the configuration file. By default, the configuration file for SSH is going to be located in etc SSH folder and sshd_config file, right? This is the folder and this is the file I want to access out here. Okay, so now let's go there. I'll go check out here. So if you see vim/etc sshd_config. This is a configuration file which is very important for us. Okay, so this you can see. If you come in the open this configuration file, if you come a little bit down, there is something called as a permit root login is there, right? I have to make sure is uncomment this line, meaning remove the hash file or hash symbol out there and add yes at the end and make sure the prohibit password is disabled. That is, I'm going to comment the rest of it. So when this happens out there, previously you remember it did not allow. Now this configuration change is where I'm telling to the system that I am allowing SSH to can be accessed as root user main, and this particular is the right. So let me stop this. I will rerun it. I give the password out here. You see now I'm able to access as root user. Previously I was not able to access because that permission was not enabled out there. To be frank, you according to the rules and regulations, security standards, whenever you are running any server out there, you have to specifically go to the SSH configuration file here and make sure that the permit root login line is commented and it should not allow for it to be accessed from anywhere else, right? This is mandatory test requirement. If you're not doing this, okay, if you're not doing this, you will actually lose your license in some cases, right? You will actually lose your license in some cases out there. ISO compliance, it requires mandatory secure access to the system and the root user should not be allowed to access out there. Okay, so now one more thing. Most of the time, where are you running there? Let's say there are 10 devices in a network. Okay, some of them are servers and some of them are desktops out here, right? When you go to any company, not all systems are server. A lot of people laptops are there connected to the network, desktops are there, servers are there. Let's say someone is able to get inside and able to ping all the devices out there. How we will know? Because I cannot decide. There may be sometimes not 10, there may be 100 devices also in a network. If you have attended our scan process, you know how easy it is to scan, right? One of the session was based on network scanning out there. So now based on the network scanning, I want to compromise as many systems as possible with less amount of time. So out of 100 systems, I have to look at the top one system, and then I have to keep the set of systems as priority 1 and second set of systems of priority 2 and 3 keeps on going out there. The priority 1 is always going to be server, right? Which is because they'll always have juicy information on them. So my question to you guys is that if there are 100 devices out there, how will I know which is the server out of 100 devices? How do I know which is the server out there? Anyone has any idea? Any answers? A lot of you are attending. I've attended our Nessus and Nmaps scanning classes as well. What do you think? Which is how do you identify which devices may be server out there? We will never have a straightforward approach, right? We will never have a straightforward answer for this, but there are certain ways we can know for sure. For instance, how do you know a particular person is rich or poor? Right? How do you know a person is rich or poor? One of the best ways we can know is looking at their attire, or what dress they are wearing out there. Based on that, we can tell, right? If someone is wearing Gucci or Louis Vuitton and things like that, we know okay, there may be rich people out there, or someone who's wearing a non-branded. There's a very good possibility they are an average people out there. Similarly, in servers, it will be running some kind of a service out there, right? Service like HTTP, service like FTP, right? And also SSH is going to be available out there. So now what is going to happen is that, yes. So by default, yeah, please go ahead.
Now I was going to say, so would it have more ports open?
Yes, they will have more ports open as well. But one more thing is going to happen out there. We cannot decide number of ports open to look at servers are going to have more ports open. For instance, whenever a client is, let's say, a server is running port number 80 for running HTTP, right? Whenever a client connects to the server, client also has to open a port. This is going to be random port, somewhere like 45965, because maximum number of ports is from 0 to 65,535 ports are there. A random port after 45,000 or 49,000 is going to be used by client. And every time it is connecting to different servers. When you open your browser and when you open your browser, you might have connected to 10 different servers, 10 different ports will be open out there. So based on number of ports, I cannot tell which is a server and which is a client. But that is a good idea, but it is not accurate way of going about. Okay. One of the best ways of knowing which port, which device is of importance is to look at open ports numbers. What is the number out there? If you're running port number 80, 443, I know this is a web server for sure, because this two is the default port number for websites, right? At the same time, certain times you will be running default non-running websites in a non-default port like 8080 in some cases. At that time, it may not be accurate, right? But all critical servers, one service is going to be available for sure. That is SSH. If SSH port is open, it means it is a server of critical importance. And what is the port number for SSH? By default, the port number is going to be port number 22. By default, the port number that is going to be running is port number 22, and we have to change this process. Okay, so now you remember one thing, while a hacker is going to be there, he has to reduce his footprint. Okay, he has to reduce his footprint. The more number of packets he is doing, more number of scans he's doing, it is going to be evident someone is trying to hack into the system out there. So we want to overcome that situation. How do we do that part, right? So what hacker is going to do is that he has to reduce by default. If you remember, when we run the Nmap scan, what is going to happen? Nmap 192. 192.168.178.160. What is going to happen here? Here it is actually sending how many 1,000 signals. It is going to scan the top 1,000 ports out there. So for sending, so just to check if these two ports are open, I would have sent 1,000 packets to this particular Ubuntu machine from my Kali Linux out there. In the enterprise network, there will be ways of knowing if someone receives 1,000 packet in a short span of time. They're going to do is, okay, someone is trying to hack, they'll try to be very cautious. In order to overcome this, what an hacker is going to do is that he is going to scan very particular port only. In this case, what he will do is going to tell nmap -p port 22 and give the IP address for that. Now, since the service is running in default port, it tells that in a single request, I can know that it is running a SSH service. So this is of importance out there. Let's say if this SSH service is not running. Okay, what I will do is that let me stop the SSH service. I will do sudo system control stop SSH. Right. I will restart it immediately. I'm just giving. So if I do this, I will do this for all the IP addresses I have. And if this you can see is okay. Is showing as dead. Okay, let me do one thing. I will install the SSH once again later. Let me remove it. Sudo apt which the scanner is having some kind of a service it is telling out there, but usually it should give closed, So let me do one thing. Let me reboot the server out here. Nowadays, we are having some issue with Ubuntu when it comes to services in the VMware. It does not, certain things does not reflect immediately.
So one more thing I would like to add, Mr. Karthik, if you allow me for a few
Yes,
minutes.
please.
Guys, please, it is an interactive session, and if you have any question, doubt, I think this is the best place where you can find your answers. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question, right? Because this free internship or free webinars, the main agenda was to give all of our students a high level overview of that particular domain and that particular job role. You may ask question regarding that cybersecurity related job, skills, certificate, anything is bugging if in your mind. Now, one more thing I would like to tell, our cybersecurity job ready training was started this Friday, like yesterday. Okay, and it is going to continue for next 2 months, like more or less 2 months. It is like actually 7 week sessions, Monday to Friday, 2 hours every day. It is evening 7:30 p.m. Central Time, that is morning Indian time, and midnight African time, around I think 1 a.m. So those are having a question or eager to join to prepare themselves or for these cybersecurity positions, especially DevSecOps and cloud security engineers, feel free to reach out to us. We do have few more positions left. So that is the one information I would like to share. But please make this training more useful. Ask whatever question you have, because I don't know. Yeah, I think this is the last or second last session now with Mr. Karthik. Then he will have a few weeks break. Then we are going to start the next batch. But please make useful of this time. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Karthik. And if anyone have any question for our job ready training or our paid training, which is like a full-fledged training, feel free to reach us out in our WhatsApp channel. Okay. And I can see some of the students who have done their training with Mr. Devashish and Mr. Karthik for the job ready training, and they can also guide you how the training help them and will help them in their uh, present days and their future as well. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So now that there's some issue with the scanner, it is showing as open out here, but in fact, that is actually supposed to come as closed, right? It is not going to be open out there because that particular service is actually been removed out there. By default, this is an easy way approach for me to do that part. In cybersecurity, one of the things that is important is that I have to make sure that maximum I need to prevent. I cannot prevent if we can only make security harder. We cannot give 100% security. That is one of the base principles of it. It is almost not hackable. That is what we can say. But people will always find a way to hack it. And we want to increase the difficulty. So by one way to increase the difficulty of finding out whether a system is running an SSH or is to change the default port for the SSH service. By default, I told the port number 22 is going to be there. Changing the default port is very, very simple out here. Okay, so let's say, let me install the service once again here. So we can give. Now we'll use that configuration file vim/etc sshd_config. And if you see in this file, if you come only few lines down, you will see the port number. It is there. So uncomment this line, give the port number of your choice. In this case, I'm going to give port number 4444 and I'm going to give save this. OK, I'm not able to do this because I did not use sudo command out here. Use sudo, come down. Want to restart the service. Right now, if you see, if I try to access SSH student 192.68, I don't know why the Ubuntu service is not. I might have to restart the service. Sudo reboot now. Okay. For the new port number to exchange, usually it should get after I restart the service, it should be automatically the port should be open and closed, but it is not happening here. We'll try to reboot and see how it's going to happen. See now, what is happening here is that by default, it is telling it is not able to connect. But even though the service is running here, you can give system control, status, SSH here, you can see it is inactive. Let's start it. So it is still showing us not able to connect, but it is running out here. So what is the reason for this process? The main reason, yes, is very simple. I'm no longer running the service in the default port. So now if I'm going to run the nmap scan for port number 22, it is going to come as closed. So now because of this, since I've changed the default port, an hacker will not know that SSH service is running. He's getting it as closed, and now he might not try to hack that particular device because it is of less interest for him because SSH is not running out there, right? In some cases, they may be very much intrigued about it. What they might do is that they might try to scan all the available ports out there, right? So they have to give something like this. If they give nmap-p-, it is going to scan all 65,000 ports. So 65,000 packets are sent to the destination machine out here. And then it is able to tell. You can see now it is telling port number 4444, which we are running for SSH, is showing as open out there. But this is going to raise a lot of suspicion into the administrator, and they will take necessary precautions that someone is trying to hack. They will try to disable the IP address or do the other things out there for that process out there. OK, they can be a bit more attentive. They will have some kind of a response waiting for them to prevent this approach. That is the main advantage of changing the port number. OK, you may be wondering, how do I access the new port number? We have to do small change out here. Same thing you have to use, but the end I have to give -p4444. I should be able to access it out there. If I don't give -p and the port number, by default, it is going to connect to port number 22. If we are running on a custom port number, -p and the port number is important out here. OK, you can see it is connected. Let's exit out of this. One more way, you can also protect your systems from network attacks is to enable firewall. Okay. For instance, you can give sudo enable UFW enable, uncomplicated firewall. I'm going to give what here. If I run the firewall is active, if I run the nmap scan, it will not know which port is open at all because firewall is going to block all the ports. But here it is also going to block the port number 4444 as well because it is not added. Every port is going to be blocked out here. So we need to do some extra configuration to allow that. So that is very simple. Just give sudo UFW allow port number 4444. That is going to be from a TCP protocol routing. Now let me start again. Right, see, I'm able to access it, but I will not be access the HTTP protocol, that is port number 80. Previously it was showing up there. So that's the main concern for this approach. So now you remember here this is one of these very few concepts that we are going to do in our main course. Main course is much more interactive, more things are going to be discussed out there. This is just one of those concepts out there, right? So we'll go much more deeper into services. How do we hack? How do we scan for services and things and all is going to be discussed out there. So now we want to talk about how do you do a passwordless approach, right? For instance, when I give SSH, if I give student at IP address 192.168.178.160, it is prompting me for password. Okay, what if I can log into this without entering the password of that? Without entering any password, how do I log into that part? For that, we are going to use public key infrastructure. For doing that, what we are going to do is that we are going to run a very specific keygen command where I'm going to create two keys out there. One is public key and one is private key. And many one of you might have heard about PEM file. PEM file is nothing but a public key in some cases out there, right? So what we are going to do is that we are going to take that public key and push it to the target machine of the system out there. So when that is going to be there, you'll be able to connect to that without entering any password at all. So let's see how do we do that component. One more thing about SSH files, by default location, it is going to be where this we are in the Jenkins home student users home folder. If you give PWD, you can see /home/student. If you want to see all the files under them, you can see this is the process out there, right? You can see desktop document and everything. There's one more file that is going to be present out here. That is going to be allowed only when you have that communication set up out there, right? We have to do it. We can manually create those files and do, but the file permissions are very, very important out there, right? We have to be very careful out there. So instead of doing that permissions yourself, what I usually do is that I will do an SSH to my own user only in my case. So I'll do SSH student at 192.168.178.160 FNP, right? So it's now, right? So I'll exit out of this. Now if I do ls-l, see the contents, ls-la. There's one particular folder called .ssh. This is very much important. And you will see the file permissions for that folder is a bit different. And this is very much important out there. 700 is required for SSH. That is very much important. So we'll go inside that .ssh folder and you'll see there are multiple files out here. One is an authorized key and no host, right? There is no authorized key is going to be quite empty out there. So now what I'm going to do in my client machine, that is my Kali Linux, is I'm going to generate a public private key combination out here. So what I'm going to give SSH -keygen -t RSA. -t stands for which algorithm you can use. There are multiple algorithms out there, right? RSA is one, DSA is there, ECDSA, elliptic curve DSA, and EC elliptic curve, a lot of things are there. We're not worried about other things. We are only worried about RSA algorithm, right? And I'm going to tell block size. What is the key length that is going to be? I'm going to give key length is going to be 4096. This is always going to be power of n, right? So this key size is usually going to be in this way, right? 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 4096, and keeps on going up there. The size, it is always going to be 2 to the power of n itself, right? That is very important on them. So I'm specifying the key size as 4096, and it is something very large key size, and it will take probably millions of years in your current computational speed to break this password out there, right? Using a brute force. So let's say it is generating, and it is asking, it is going to generate two keys, right? One is public and private key, where you want to store. So I'm telling by default, store it in this folder, and the file name should start with ID RSA. Okay, I can change this here. I can enter something else, change it, but I'm not going to change it in this case. I'm going to keep it same. Press enter, empty passphrase. No, I'm not going to enter anything here. Right, the file is created out there. Simple. If you go now, cd.ssh, and you give ls, you could see there are two files out here. One is ID RSA without any extension. This is a private key, and under .pub is the private public key. You can see the contents of that file as well. All you have to do is cat ID RSA. This is the private key. See, this is the 4096. It is a very long set of key. This is the password that is going to use for encrypting the communication here. Okay, that is there. I can do the same thing for pub also. Right, and here this is telling having a public key. This is in an encoded way. That is why it is small. We don't have to. It is not as big as private key, but both of them are very similar. Now what I have to do is I have to take the contents of this file. I have to take this content of this file to my target machine and post it in the authorized keys location. Either two ways you can do: copy it, send it as a mail to someone, they'll copy that and post it in this particular folder out there, in this particular file authorized keys. Right now, if you see, there's nothing is there, right? It is no information is there. So now, but there's also one more command for doing that activity. SSH-copy ID, then I can give student at 192.116.117.60. I'm missing some kind of an. Just a second. I think I missed the command. Just a second. Just change the direction. So I can give set it as PASS and things on there. I've entered the password. Now, if you come and see this authorized file, it will actually contain the contents of root.kali, the public key that has been copied into this. Previously, it was not there. So now all I have to do here is if I run the SSH command to connect to the Ubuntu machine, previously it used to ask me password. Now it will not do that. It will directly give me access for that. It will directly give me access for that. And this is how it is as simple as that, right? What is happening is whenever I'm going to try to connect to the Jenkins server, it is going to check is there any public key, private key available out there. It is going to send a copy of a public key. This machine is going to send a public key and it is going to see that public key copy is there and there's some kind of a challenge mechanism that is happening out there. A key is going to be encrypted using the private key of it, then it is going to be decrypted and all those processes is going to happen out here. And once that everything is work fine, it will be able to allow access to this machine out there, right? This is very, very important out there in a current scenario. Why is that? Why do you think it is important for us to have a allow password access, passwordless access? Think about you are an admin person. Okay, you are never going to be working on a single machine at all. You're never going to work on a single machine at all. You may be in some cases, let's say, when you talk about big data analytics, right? There are certain times 25,000 instances of a particular Linux will be running out there and all of them will have an SSH communication. How does the administrator can work on them? How can he remotely? Can he remember 25,000 passwords? No, right? What he's going to do is going to use the same password for multiple places. It is a lot more easy to brute force password than brute forcing a public key, right? So now in order to overcome this, what I can do is that I can take the public key, which I did right now, and push it to all 25,000 systems and still connect to any machine of my choice without having to enter any password at all. In real-time scenario, in most of the cases, it's not going to be working with 25,000 machines. You'll be working around, 10, 15 instances like that. Yes, please go ahead with the question.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. My
Yes.
question is, when I'm trying to, can you SSH a server which is not on the same network with you? And how do you do that?
Either you have to be routable to that communication out there. For instance, let's say you're working from home and you want to connect to your server in your office. And if you see in your home, you'll always be having a private IP address 192.168.10. This is a private IP address. It cannot be routed, but somewhere your ISP is going to give you a public IP address that is going to take care of that. But in this situation, your server needs to have your public IP address for sure, for you to be able to connect to that. Most of the time you will see that whenever you create the instance in AWS, it is not there in your location, right? You may be sitting in Africa, you may be sitting in India, you may be sitting in Japan, but your AWS instance is in US. How we are able to connect? The public IP is going to be there. The internet will know how to come take the packet from your device to the public IP address available out there. Okay, that is one way of knowing to do how to go about it. But in most cases, this is not recommended in a real-time scenario. That may not be there because your server will also have something called as a private IP. Your server will also have something called as a private IP. In that case, what is going to happen is that you are going to create a VPN tunnel to your office. You might have seen something like Cisco any connect, right? When you're working in your organization, you want to work from home, you're going to connect to your organization using Cisco AnyConnect. That will create a VPN for you, and you will be able to reach your destination and be able to SSH into this server out there. Either using VPN or either using public network, it should be reachable out there to that device. Right? The packet should be able to reach out there. That is how you can reach using SSH. If there is no route available out there, then you can't connect to SSH to that device. Okay. Hope it answered your question. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, you've answered my question. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? So this is predominantly how we go about securing a SSH communication out here. All right. One way of doing is to make sure that, to be frank, we can also do in this case, I can completely deny password approach itself. That can also be done. So only if you are having a public key in your place, only then you'll be able to connect. Without that, we will not be able to. It will never accept password also. That can also be done for SSH out there. There are multiple things that can be done to secure SSH out there. So for this particular session, this is something what we are going to be doing out there. Any network, there is never a single activity that you can do to secure it, right? There are multiple things you have to do. And as we saw in this case, first of all, we are going to disable root user for SSH. Then we are going to change the port number for that. Okay. And then we are going to remove password. Only allow passwordless approach because it is more secure. And top of that, we are going to enable firewall as well. And you can see this is the bare minimum. There are a lot of other things in the main course. We also talk about CIS benchmarking to a certain extent, where we discuss there are certain tools available out there where it will check for configuration issues and it will tell this need to be fixed to make it more secure out there. Right. So those are the different ways, and each and every service will have its own set of conditions that need to be met to make it secure. For instance, your HTTP web server will have its own set of components out there. Your other things are also going to be present out there. Okay. And one more question you have to consider is, can you do file transfer using SSH command? Is it possible to do that? File transfer using SSH command? This is an interview question. Someone was asked and they could not answer it. Right? What do you think? And the answer is actually no. You can't do file transfer using SSH command. You can only execute commands, send commands to be executed on the remote machine. That is the main criteria of that. For you to be able to do file transfer, you have to use a command called SCP. SCP command has to be used for that particular component. We'll talk about SCP and other things in the future classes, but for the time being, we will stop here. Any questions related to SSH or related to the main course, please ask me.
Hi, good day, sir.
Hi.
Yes. Yeah, please, actually, like I'm entirely new to like IT, to tech generally. So I don't know, for like we that doesn't even have like an iota of experience how do you think we can navigate like the field of cybersecurity? Because like everything
So
you just say, I won't say it's jargons, but like I'm just watching. I'm not here, I'm not there. You understand what I'm saying?
yes, I can understand. So everyone would have started somewhere to do certain activities. I would suggest start from Linux on a basic ways. So that is once you do the Linux and do the services and how to run the services and things, it becomes much more easier to understand cybersecurity. Right? In our case, what I would suggest is you can look at the DevOps course. And if you look at the DevOps course content, you will see it is starting from very basic, very simple Linux, how to set up Linux, how do you configure Linux, how do you install Linux, how the communication is happening, what do you mean by a service. Everything is going to be discussed out there. You can understand that. Once you have that base understanding, you can go ahead with that. Yes, yes, Manu, please go ahead.
Yeah, Dada. One thing in our cybersecurity DevSecOps training, we try to cover 3 or 4 job positions to make our students or consultant ready for them for that position. The reason behind, many of our students after completions of their training, they join our own consulting firm, and we have to like we are trying our level best to place them on various job role. So that is another our intention to make them ready for those job role. Now for our cybersecurity training,
Yeah.
actually we are covering cloud security positions, DevSecOps positions, and penetration testing positions. If you go for LinkedIn job search, you will find there are like more than hundreds job companies are reposting on these positions. Why we are more focused on these 3 positions apart from AI? Because here market demand and supply is not matching. That means though the job market was literally dull last couple of months in US, but it is gradually increasing, and again it is you know it is going back to its original state. So we are looking for some good opportunities upcoming. But and you can apply for 3 position, and most of these 3 are interconnected. Uh, Now, having said so, this particular 2 months training is good enough to you land on or prepare yourself for this US job market on these 3 job positions. You can go in your LinkedIn profile, search for this job role, and you will find many companies they reposted their positions. If you go for and compare to a business analyst and developer position, you will find within a 1 day more than 100 people applied. But that is not same for DevSecOps positions or penetration tester positions. They will find that in a week only less than 100 people applied. The only reason, the market still having lack of skilled people on these 3 domain, and we wants to take the full leverage of that, like these imbalance things, so our students can get a job more easily without having prior any IT experience.
Yeah, yes, sir. Actually, like I'm not new to Kalkey, I'm like one of your students, and
I know.
I've
I
gone
know you
through
did.
and I got a job fine. But it's not even about now. I recommended 2 guys to you because they had no prior experience, because they are also a member of this class. That's why I'm asking, they were like, they are kind of lost, they are kind of, so I just want to bring in their interest, and I told them, if you learn with Kalkey, I can tell you it's 100% job guarantee, because it's what I've gone through myself.
Frankly,
So, I'm
we
trying
don't
to
never
motivate them.
we never try to use this 100% job guarantee, but thanks to you, because you are our beloved students and you have done the training, but you are giving the that warranty from your end. So yeah, because we have a single goal in our mindset to prepare our student for job role, right? So thank you. But matter of fact, our cybersecurity DevSecOps, the 2 months job ready training has started last this Friday. If they wants to
Oh,
join,
the cyber just started this Friday?
yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday, okay. Okay, I will tell the person if you could still join, just to like pick it up from where you guys are at. So
Yeah,
I will encourage.
always we started in Friday, and that was like introductions class. So the main class is going to start from this Monday.
Okay, all right then, no problem. I will tell him. I will get you. I will give him your number. He will call you directly.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thanks to you. And how is it? Everything's going? Your job and all the other parts.
Yeah, it's you know I'm working like as a system engineer, not more cybersecurity, not, but I'm doing more of cloud. It's cloud focused, you know. Of course,
Yes.
with the experience, I'm doing more of Ansible, you know, things like that. But it's always okay. Thank you so much.
That is all about you. We are just came here to help because it
Yeah,
is all about you.
yeah, yes, sir.
Guys, do you have any other question? Please remember, we do have another 2 hour sessions following this session. That is a DevOps, and that is the fundamental of your any operation domain, right? So you always people should start with DevOps, so you can learn cloud fundamentals and advanced level of cloud, then go for Linux and some of the understanding our SDLC, software development life cycle. Based on that plinth, you can build any other advancement on your IT field, right? So I think we have the Mr. Devash is waiting for his 2 hour sessions. Don't miss that session. And I'm telling you, if you start with DevOps and then you start with, because DevOps will build your plinth, right? You start with Linux, then cloud, and right now without these two things you cannot move forward. If even eventually, like regardless of if you're working as a testing domain, development domain, operation domain, I think these three domains only have like core domain, right? uh business domain. But this all you need to have, you should have a basic level or advanced level of understanding of Linux and cloud. Today's day, everything is, all IT industry are based on these two. You can some people say, hey, I don't need Linux, I can only work with Windows servers. Yes, you can do, but you are limiting your own potential, right? Any other question, or should we move to our DevOps session? What is your thought? So did you got
That
your
is my.
answer, or
Yeah,
Karthik?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, of course, I'm good.